and welcome to the Album Man, and today we're going to be taking a look at Influence by Philip Sayce. This was released on the 25th of August 2014 and is the follow-up to 2012's Steamroller. So Philip Sayce, if you don't know, was born in Wales, brought up in Canada, and is a blues singer and guitarist who used to play in Jeff Healey's band. Jeff Healey, fantastic guitarist. If you don't know who he is, definitely recommend checking him out. But now Philip Sayce has a solo career, and so far it's one I've enjoyed quite a lot. I saw him live in 2010, and I have over here, out of picture, an A3 signed poster adorning my wall of him. I mean, there were barely any people live when I saw him, and that was on the Inner Evolution tour. But still, he went all out, didn't hold back, and thoroughly impressed me with his guitar virtuosity and emotive playing, along with his soulful voice, playing some of the catchiest blues rock I've just ever had. I mean, his best album without a doubt was Inner Evolution. To me, that's a modern blues classic and an album, if I was going to review it, I would quite possibly rate a perfect 10. I mean, he collaborated with Richard Marx on it, and there's basically nothing I really have to say negative against that album. Though his last record, Steamroller, I just didn't feel lived up to what he had done with Inner Evolution. Even though it's produced by Dave Cobb, who I love as a producer. I'm a massive Rival Sons fan. Great Rest and Valkyrie from earlier this year is one of my favourite albums of 2014. But I just felt that that album took away some of the rock element and added more sort of funk, soul type stuff into a more prominent position than it was before. It's a decent album, but it's not a stunning one in the same way Inner Evolution was. It's not as catchy, I would say. Influence, though, this is more like what I expected Steamroller to be. Here Sayce goes right back to his roots as he channels Stevie Ray Vaughan, Hendrix, Healey, and even Gilmour on this album, which contains a mixture of originals and covers. I mean, in fact, 7 tracks on the album are covers, and personally I'm not really a fan of covers unless they really add something different, new to a song. For example, the blues example I always use, Joe Bonamassa's cover of Tim Curry's Slow Gin, one of the greatest blues songs of the last 20 years, and I would say ever. His version just reinvented that song and made it into a classic. So, what does Sayce do? Does this work in his favour, the covers? I mean, it certainly helps off the bat that there are a lot more obscure songs and interesting picks. He doesn't decide to go for blues standards or Robert Johnson songs or something. So we'll see how it works out. So I'm not going to look at every track on this album, just some particular ones I want to talk about. So let's talk about some of the really well done covers first. So one of the highlights of this album has to be I'm Going Home, which is originally by the Sonics. This is how you do a cover right. You take a fairly unknown song, you capture the essence that made it a good song, but make it your own. And Sayce wonderfully does this with this song. He takes the aggression and power of the original, and particularly with the sort of the Hendrixy sounding lead riff, but really puts his mark on it. Particularly effective with the introduction of the fast-paced, short, sweet solo in the bridge. And as usual, the backing band behind him really are very talented musicians and help drive this song. It's definitely a three-piece that's reminiscent of Hendrix's backing band in terms of musicianship on this song, and really across the entire album. Another cover I particularly enjoy, well, structurally very simple, is Blues Ain't Nothing But a Good Woman on Your Mind, which is by Don Covey and the Blues Lemon Band. Fantastic name for a band, that is. And it's based around that classic 12-bar blues sound with traditional bluesy lyrics, as you can find with, you know, my favourite having to be here, you put salt in my coffee, black pepper in my bread. Only classic blues would ever deliver lyrics like that, and you'd be able to get away without people criticising the hell out of them. So yeah, Sayce takes his traditional, I would say, B.B. King, Buddy Guy sounding song, if you don't know who Don Covey and the Blues Lemon Band are, which is obviously perfectly reasonable. And he definitely modernises and reinvigorates it. This song just has a spark and a spontaneity about it, particularly as it's produced with such energy and that real sort of live, raw feel. He makes the main riff heavier and it stand out more, while vocally going to a low register than usual with his music, trying to capture a bit of those old baritone bluesmen of old, without ever trying to directly emulate them. This song definitely shows Sayce's ability to take influence from an artist without it feeling feeling like the same ground is being trodden or merely attempting to produce a facsimile and imitation of it. Though weirdly the covers I don't think work as well are the opener and closing song. The opener is Tom Devil Blues. This is a traditional song, and Sayce's version is heavily inspired by Ed Lewis and the Prisoners' original a cappella version recorded in a prison yard, I believe. The problem is that it's so influenced by it actually takes the original a cappella version and adds music to it. So you have this really dodgily recorded old blues vocals with modern day guitar, fuzzy blues riffage, and this results in a very odd combo. Especially as an opener, this was an odd choice, as you're left thinking, well, at the beginning of the album, what the hell have I gotten myself into with Ed Lewis's call and response vocals? It's really almost impenetrable in this mix. You really can't understand that well what is actually being sung. I mean, I appreciate the experimentation in this track, but it's by far one of the weakest songs on the album. And again, Philip Sayce, on the last track on the album, Peace in the Valley, decides to do something a bit odd with Joe Savage's a cappella vocals, and Sayce plays music along with this. Again though, the disparity between the production and the music, the production, the vocals and music is just jarring, and really to me renders the song less enjoyable, as the vocals on Peace in the Valley, they're really far back in the mix and it just doesn't quite sound right, even if musically the song is top notch with the gentle reverberated picking pattern at its heart as the music ebbs and flows, but it just really doesn't work for me, like Tom Devil Blues. Another cover I'm not too big on is Sailin Shoes by Lowell George, recorded by Little Feat. And this is a track I'm going to speak briefly about. I've never really been a fan of Sayce's soul and particularly funk stuff. It's just they're not genres that really particularly appeal to me. I really dislike funk music, so something like Sailin Shoes really does nothing for me. Not to say it's a bad cover, but personally it's one of my least favourites on the album. I can certainly understand why someone who likes funk would enjoy this song more. Though where I think Sayce really shines on this album is with his fantastic original compositions written by himself and Dave Cobb, the producer. Like, for example, the second track on the album, Out of My Mind. This track is brimming with energy and immediacy and really wouldn't have felt out of place on Inner Evolution, with the blues rock vibe throughout and a very sort of interesting, well executed Hendrix-esque bridge. Again, combined with a killer chorus and some Mitchell-style drumming and awesome guitar lick, it just creates one of the most instantly likeable songs on the album. Definitely what should become a live staple in his setlist. Though the influences on Sayce's album definitely aren't just limited to the traditional blues realm. A good example of this is Fade Into You. This very much showcases the diversity on the album. It's one of the most beautifully put together songs in Sayce's catalogue, with a haunting, ethereal quality that you really don't get from Sayce or expect from him. Definitely shows him stepping outside the blues roots with an acoustic guitar melody that wouldn't have felt out of place on a Pink Floyd track, and a brilliant produced crescendo into the chorus. The guitar playing, as you would expect, is stellar on this track. He strikes even that perfect balance of when to solo and when not to. I find excessive soloing sometimes you can get from virtuoso players that sometimes it just bogs the whole thing down, but I've always felt Sayce was very controlled in when to play it, and when he does play, you certainly know about it, as it really does blow you away. Just from a songwriting perspective though, I just think this really shows maturity in Sayce's songwriting. It's soulful, emotion-filled, and his voice really comes into its own here. I mean, we've clearly got to focus on his guitar playing a bit more and how it stacks up to his previous efforts, and it stacks up very, very well indeed. He still has that trademark Sayce fuzzy guitar sound to it in the lead parts on his trademark Fender Strat, and his masterful use of vibrato and, again, emotional depth on top of his technical proficiency really just elevates him, in my view, above so many contemporary guitar players. I mean, you want an example of this? Well, Triumph. This is an instrumental like Aberystwyth riff from Steamroller, and it's one of the standout tracks on the album. Here the Floyd and Gilmour influence is very apparent from the opening, and a moment in the first solo almost sounds like it's from Dark Side of the Moon, honestly. Though this song definitely finds its own distinct sound and doesn't feel like a mere rehash of ideas from the past, but instead takes inspiration from the past and builds on them. Slower feel than a lot of the solos on this album, but that's what I really love. It's very much that B.B. King every note counts style and philosophy of playing, with a killer atmospheric riff for a chorus. It's a fantastic song. I really like that one. Of the other originals, I find a song like Easy on the Eyes to be good, but it's hardly mind-blowing. It's just a sort of a 3-minute slab of rock-fueled blues that has that energy Sayce is able to draw from himself and the band, but I find the chorus a little anticlimactic, personally. I still enjoy it though. Evil Woman, a song I thought would be one of the covers because of course of the famous ELO song of the same name. But this certainly isn't a cover of the ELO song, though that would have been pretty cool actually. This is a distorted song with a really heavy riff and one of the best guitar solos on the album, with its feedback which moves into this killer, faster, shreddier solo. Overall, I find Influence to be definitely a step up from Steamroller, and an album I enjoy thoroughly, though I find the abundance of covers to be disappointing, and I honestly wish there was more original songs on the album, as I find they generally tend to be more consistent than the covers portion of the album. To me, Sayce still has asserted himself as one of the most talented guitarists in contemporary blues, and I certainly prefer this over the highly overrated Black and Blue by Gary Clark Jr., which is a whole nother review for another day. While I appreciate the variety of influences that Sayce channels, I just want to see a bit more of Sayce himself on this album. So I'm going to give this a 7.75 out of 10. It's a solid blues album, definitely worth checking out, but it's not as good as Inner Evolution. This has been the Album Man. Thanks for watching, comment, subscribe, and as usual, long live rock and roll.